Good evening and welcome to Boston College's virtual open house series, Discover Boston College. My name is Grant Gosselin and I serve as Director of Undergraduate Admission here at Boston College. And on behalf of my colleagues in the office and at home, we welcome you to this event and to this series over the course of the next month. This evening, we have over 1,400 guests joining us, registering from 45 US states and territories and countless countries around the world. Students registered from Greece and Amsterdam, Spain, Colombia, Panama, United Kingdom, Saudi Arabia, India, China, the list goes on. So we realize that many of you are up late or have gotten up early to watch us, and we really have enjoyed interacting with you thus far and hope that you get as much as you can out of this experience. We will be recording this session this evening, so if you aren't able to stay until the very end, or if you have friends who would like to view it on demand at a later date, it will be stored online on our virtual open house on demand series. If you have a question this evening, we would invite you to post that question in the question and answer box. My colleagues are behind the scenes answering those questions, and they will also forward questions to me that would be appropriate for the larger audience. It won't be possible for us to get to everyone's question tonight, but we'll do our best to answer those questions that have been asked frequently throughout the course of our hour together. So we thank you for posting those, and we'll do everything we can to get your questions answered. When we as a staff got together this summer to begin brainstorming what a virtual open house would look like at Boston College, we thought it would be appropriate to start with an event specific to addressing the issue that is facing all of us around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted all of our lives, either in minimal ways or very serious ways. We realize that the diversity of our population and the students that we serve means that there are students that were inconvenienced and there are certain students that were directly impacted. Whether it was family members who have passed, our condolences go to you and your loved ones. Those who have been sick, those who have been disrupted along the way. We realize this is an unprecedented time, and we thought we would spend some time this evening talking about the reality that we do understand what you are dealing with, and we will be addressing that as we approach the next admissions cycle. So let me begin by highlighting just a few of the ways that we know you have been disrupted over the course of this past 6 months or longer, depending on what part of the world you're living in. We realize that this began as you were in your junior year of high school. You were working through what many believe to be the most important year of the four-year cycle, the last complete year that colleges and universities will have to evaluate your academic portfolio. And your schools were immediately and abruptly shut down, moving to online and remote learning. We know that different school systems approach this in different ways. There were schools that were able to very quickly pivot to distant learning and really didn't miss much of a beat. Classes continued, grades were given, and students were able to finish that year with a GPA that was complete. There were other schools that were not able to pivot as quickly, that didn't have the technology in place to do so. And so there were large gaps in learning with several weeks of hiatus for students to be put on hold before their education resumed. There were schools that were able to allow students to earn grades throughout the course of their junior year, and schools that immediately moved to a pass-fail. We realized that the diversity of the school systems around the world, we received last year applications from over 7,000 different high schools, and we anticipate that we will be spending our review period really understanding with great detail how your schools responded. We won't be holding this against students. We will certainly understand that you're doing the best within your environment, and we will be evaluating you in the context of the school in which you are studying. We realized that your college search was put on hold. Many students in their junior year of high school spend their spring and summer months visiting college campuses, traveling the country or around the world to step foot on those campuses, to try to get a sense of the culture of each institution, the physical landscape of each college or university, the proximity to cities or rural locations, and really just trying to understand and meet the people with whom you'll be studying over the course of the next 4 years. All of that was put on hold. Boston College generally welcomes about 40,000 visitors between the months of March and August, another 25,000 during our fall semester. This has been disruptive for us as well, as we've not been able to do what we absolutely love to do, and that is meet young people from all over the country and around the world. It's put our work on hold, and it's caused us to pivot. And we know that you have also had to do so throughout the course of your academic lives in the past year. We understand that your spring plans changed. Many of you were gearing up toward spring productions in your theater groups. Perhaps you had year-end sports tournaments. Spring seasons were canceled altogether. So many of the things that happened at the end of the year didn't happen this past year. Reasons for you to celebrate, reasons for you to highlight in your application, and we know that those things have been put on hold. Your summer plans perhaps changed. We know that the summer before senior year is a year when students are typically working in part-time jobs, holding internships, potentially taking college or university courses, certainly visiting campuses, playing in sports camps, doing all sorts of things that unfortunately weren't able to take place or took place in a very different format over the course of the summer months. And it continues as the school year has started in many parts of the country and around the world. And in many parts, it hasn't yet. Here in Massachusetts, many of the public schools won't begin their studies until later this week. We understand that this has continued to uproot your plans for your senior year. Many high schools are continuing with an online or remote model. Some have moved to hybrid, and there are some we know that have moved to an in-person model as well. We realize again that no matter where, depending on where you are in the country or around the world, your school may or may not have had the luxury of opening in person at all. And so it's with this context that we begin our conversation. But there's one more layer. And those of you know that over the course of the spring and summer, our country not only has had to deal with a once-in-a-generation pandemic, once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, but we've also had to face the brutal reality of systemic racism in the United States. Following the death of George Floyd, following the death of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, our country is in pain and our country is hurting. And we realize that some of our students and some of our families have had additional burdens in addition to this COVID-19. And we realize that we're reviewing applications in that context. So as we lay the stage for the process by which you'll be applying to college, I realize there is a lot that could make you discouraged. And my hope is that over the course of the next several minutes that we have together, that I'll try to help you understand how we are responding as an institution and how I know so many of the colleges and universities which you are considering are responding as well. Let me begin by mentioning that Boston College accepts the Common Application and the QuestBridge application for admission. This year, the Common Application, which is the application that most of our candidates will be using, has made some changes to its application system. School counselors will be able to identify for colleges exactly the changes that they have had to endure curricularly, in terms of grading, and any other changes that have been disruptive to the student experience. You can be assured that your schools will be addressing these things. Therefore, you don't need to spend time in your application outlining whether your school adopted a pass-fail model or was weighting grades differently, any of those things. We will have that information up front. But there will be an opportunity for you as the applicant to tell us if COVID has directly impacted you. Now, as I mentioned at the onset, we've all been inconvenienced by COVID, wearing masks, moving to remote work or remote learning. These things are a given across our society. But we know that there are families who have been directly impacted. Coursework that has been upended because you've been sick yourself, or you've been taking care of sick family members, or the economy has caused unemployment in your home and has caused such disruption that it has really changed the trajectory of your growth as a student and as an individual. These are things that we would like to know so that we have the additional context as we review your application. So don't feel that you have to complete that section if you don't have something significant to talk about, but we also want to make sure that if you do, you feel comfortable using the space in the application to help colleges and universities understand exactly those challenges with which you've been faced. The second thing that colleges and universities have been doing are related to this evening right here. We have pivoted quite quickly as an institution and moved all of our programming online. So there are incredible opportunities for you to explore Boston College, not only through this virtual program, but also through a number of other virtual opportunities over the course of the next several weeks. And a little bit later in the program, I'll outline some of those for you. We've made changes to some of the application requirements. The Duolingo English test has been added for international students who speak English as a second language. English proficiency is something that students do need to show during the application process. Typically, Boston College has required either the TOEFL or the IELTS examinations, and those opportunities still exist to prove that English language proficiency. But because testing centers in so many parts of the world are closed, access to those two exams is not always possible. Therefore, we have added the Duolingo English language test as a third option for students. This exam can be taken remotely and could be a good option for many students that need to complete that requirement. Boston College has also adopted a test optional admission process for the first time this year. We realize the challenges that you are all facing related to standardized testing. Testing centers throughout the world have been opened only on a sporadic basis. Most of them were closed during the spring and the first part of the summer. Some test centers began to open in the latter part of the summer or this fall, but we know that many exams were canceled last minute or without notice. Students who had been planning and preparing for those examinations were showing up at testing centers to find out that they were closed. Students that did take the examination, we know that some of you may have taken an examination last December before this pandemic hit. Some of you may have scores that you're pleased with. We know that others of you may not have been pleased with that first round, and we're planning to take additional examinations during the spring and summer. And for many students, that simply wasn't possible. So Boston College has added a test optional policy. So what does that mean? I've heard from so many students, counselors, and parents over the course of the last several months who are asking us, well, does that really mean I can apply without tests and not be at a disadvantage? And the answer is yes. Test optional colleges and universities review candidates with the information they have at hand. Those students who do submit scores can be assured that those scores will be considered during our review. Last year, the middle 50% range of admitted students to Boston College earned between 1420 and 1530 on the SAT and between 33 and 35 on the ACT. Students who submit scores in those ranges or above those ranges may feel as though those credentials may help expand our knowledge of their preparedness for college or university. Students who've taken scores and perhaps have fallen below those ranges may not feel that their exam scores are representative of their ability. As I mentioned before, perhaps you only were able to take it one time and not in a follow-up exam as you had planned. Perhaps you took it this fall and you sat in a test center with dozens of other students surrounding you, and all you could think about as you filled in those circles was the pandemic and the risk of infection. We realize that anxiety will impact score results. So you have an option. If you submit scores, we will consider them in either way. If you feel you do not have scores that represent your ability, or if you simply have not been able to take them, we will evaluate your application without penalty. And so what that means is we simply will put more emphasis on the other portions of your application. At Boston College, the high school transcript has always been the backbone and the foundation of every decision we make. It's a 4-year picture of your abilities over time, the choices that you've made academically with regard to course rigor, whether you've challenged yourself with honors courses, with AP courses, international baccalaureate courses, whatever courses your school dictates as the most rigorous. Most of our students have followed a path that has brought them through those courses. Most of our students tend to perform quite well in those examinations. They tend to perform roughly in about the top 10% of their class, whether their class has a formal rank or another way that we can assess grades in context. They're students that have generally been earning A's and A- averages throughout their time. Those things won't change. We'll still have that information on file. Perhaps the spring semester of your junior year may have an asterisk on it, or maybe a pass-fail, but we'll have the rest of your application, including your progress report from senior year, as we make our admission decisions. Boston College has one of the most experienced staffs in the entire country. The 20 members of the admission committee, on average, have more than 20 years of admission experience among them. So when you bring together that type of experience, the relationships that we form with high schools throughout the country and around the world, you can be assured that we have a sense of what your school has to offer and the context in which your learning has been happening. The last thing I'll point out that Boston College has been doing in response to the challenges we faced over the last several months was an announcement that we made early in the summer in response to George Floyd's death. And that was the establishment of the Boston College Forum for Racial Justice in America. Boston College believed that we needed to step up and take substantive action in terms of a plan to address this issue among the consciousness of our students, our staff, our faculty, to provide a space that will allow us all to observe, to judge, and then most importantly, to act, to come up with real tangible items that we can do on campus, and we can extend beyond our campus throughout the country to become a leader in this space among higher education institutions. So I challenge you to think about ways that you might be part of that solution. We're going to be calling on all of our community members to acknowledge that racism is all of our problem, and it's up to each of us to take an action step. We understand that some of you have already been involved in this sort of activism throughout your high school career, or perhaps over the summer. If this is important to you, we encourage you to investigate the BC Forum for Social Justice in America at Boston College, and also to highlight some of the opportunities that you've had to address these issues in your schools and your communities. Let me go back to our application review, and I mentioned up front that there are a lot of things that have happened this year that have impacted the way in which you'll complete your application. Some of you may not have been able to do some of the extracurricular activities or the other things that you had normally been planning for. Please let us know those things that you have done and continue to do, perhaps in a modified format. In addition to your transcript, your co-curricular involvement will be important to us. Your recommendations that people will submit on your behalf. These are people that have known you over time. Certainly, we know that teachers and school counselors' work has been elevated in terms of its complexity over the course of the last several months. But hopefully these people that you have established relationships will have the opportunity to write on your behalf and tell us about your work in the school and your work in the community. And then your personal statements will take on, I think, an increased level of importance. At Boston College, we have 4 supplemental essay prompts that we'll ask you to pick one of and respond in addition to the common application essay. Those students applying for the human-centered engineering major will respond to a 5th prompt specific to you as an applicant. But this puts you in the driver's seat in the college process. In the fall of your senior year, there really are very few things left that you can control. you have the opportunity to be in the driver's seat for this portion of the application and let us know about who you are, what you have as your goals and aspirations, and how you might add more to our community environment. I encourage you to focus on the things you can control. As I mentioned, there are a lot of things right now that none of us can control. We don't know when the pandemic will end. We don't know when vaccines will first become available. We don't even know, perhaps, whether our schools will resume activity in certain parts of the country. So these are all things that you can't. But your senior coursework, you can control. Your commitment to your studies, your commitment to your academics, even in a disrupted environment, can speak volumes to us about your commitment and your resolve during a very challenging time. I've mentioned your supplemental essay and your common application essay also can be something you can control. Your attitude and your optimism about this process is absolutely something you can control. We all, I know, myself included, have had moments over the course of the last 6 months where life has seemed pretty dire, where perhaps the negative aspects in our mind have outweighed the positive aspects. How we respond in the face of adversity says a lot about who we are as individuals and our capacity to make change moving forward. So I challenge you, while it might feel frustrating, have a positive attitude to the extent you can. Someone wise once told me that all challenges in life have a beginning, a middle, and an end. This pandemic will have an end, and we will all be stronger for it. So I challenge you to be thinking about those things as you move through this process. Finally, you can control your exploration of the colleges on your list. I mentioned at the beginning of our session that we are putting together what I think is one of the most robust portfolios of virtual offerings available. This month that we have set up for you has just about everything you could think of as you learn and explore about Boston College, from academic programs with faculty members to panels with current students talking about the student experience and aspects of student life, opportunities for parents to learn very specifically about the role that you'll play in this process, specifically designed for you. So if you're a parent watching right now and you're not registered for those, make sure that you do that. We hope that you, as you move through this process, will have the questions answered that you need along the way. And then advice, continued advice for college applicants in a variety of ways. But Discover Boston College, our virtual open house, is just one of many opportunities that you have. If you visit our website at bc.edu/visit, there are many other ways to learn about Boston College. Each afternoon throughout the course of the fall, we'll be offering a virtual Eagle Eye information session led by a member of my staff and 4 current Boston College students. The session kicks off with about a 10-minute introduction from a colleague of mine, followed by 50 minutes of question and answers directly with current undergraduate students. It's a great way to learn about the culture of Boston College. Following every one of those, we'll be offering a live guided virtual tour, providing students the opportunity to follow some of our student tour guides around campus who will be walking with a camera, a stabilizer, and addressing to questions that you might have in real time. If you want to get a little more personal, you can schedule a 30-minute session with a current student, a one-on-one conversation with a Boston College student. It's a great way to learn more about some of the questions that you have about Boston College. And then again, on that site, bc.edu/visit, you can find on-demand content. A 15-minute campus tour video that we filmed this summer that really gives you a sense for the Boston College community and the Boston College campus. There are opportunities for you to watch sessions that have been recorded this past summer, faculty sessions about various liberal arts courses at Boston College, faculty sessions about the new major in human-centered engineering. On our website, you'll find many opportunities to engage with me and my colleagues. We have on our website an admission counselor page that will introduce you to the various counselors on my staff and the territories that we evaluate as we work with applicants from around the world. We also have a high school lookup feature on our website, so you can type in your actual high school and it will tell you exactly who on the staff is responsible for working with applicants and presenting them to committee. Before we turn it over to questions and answers, I see a number of you have been forwarding questions this way. I'll be responding to some of those in just a moment. I'd like to let you know about 3 more items that are important, specific to the application process at Boston College. Some of these will be talked about more in depth in subsequent programs within this virtual open house series. But the first is our deadlines coming up. The early decision deadline at Boston College carries a November 1st deadline. Come January 1st, we have a second round of early decision 2, and regular decision. Many of you have been asking questions about whether you should be applying early decision or regular decision. And that question really depends on the amount of research you have been able to do through programs like this and other means to investigate Boston College among your list of choices. If by the end of October, just before the deadline for early decision comes, you have identified Boston College as your top choice institution, applying early decision will allow you to be a member of a much smaller applicant pool. It will allow you to identify yourself as someone who has done the research to let us know that Boston College, in your mind, is the perfect match. As we evaluate applications this year, almost 30,000 applications from around the world, it is not possible for us to admit every deserving candidate. There are many students that we admit to Boston College that had Boston College further down on their list. Perhaps there were a couple of other schools that may have been higher on their list, and those students turned down our offer of admission. Similarly, we have students every year who apply that ultimately absolutely view Boston College as their top choice school. We simply didn't know that as we made our decision, and unfortunately those candidates were not offered the opportunity to enroll. Early decision allows you to identify yourself in the process. It allows us to understand which students are most keen on attending Boston College. Last year, we had about 2,700 students apply during the early decision round. From that pool, we admitted about 37% of our students, and we enrolled about 40% of our class. During the regular decision round, the applicant pool was significantly larger. Almost 27,000 students applied during that round. We admitted just 24% and filled about 60% of the class. So you can see as you look at those data points that the advantages or the benefits of applying early decision for students who are very similar academically is significant. And so we encourage students to think about that as they're moving through your exploration process this fall. One of the challenges or criticisms about early decision programs is that they tend to benefit those students that don't need to worry about financial aid. Students who apply early decision are committing to enrolling if admitted, and many students have a concern about doing that if financial aid will be important to their family's decision. On our website, we have 2 tools for you, and we would encourage you to use them. The first is called a quick cost estimator. It will take you about 3 minutes, answer 6 questions, and we'll identify a range of where financial aid would fall if you were to qualify at Boston College. If you have a little more time and a little bit more information, perhaps pull out yet last year's tax returns, you could fill out the net price calculator. It will take you about 20 to 30 minutes to complete, but it will give you a much more narrow range where your financial aid would fall, and it would let you know if you are likely to qualify. So these are great tools if you're considering applying to Boston College, and specifically if you're considering applying early decision and financial aid will be a concern. One more note to point out is that Boston College is one of just 20 private universities in the country that are need blind in the admission process and guarantee to meet the full financial need of every candidate we admit. It's a very big commitment. Last year, over $150 million were awarded in need-based financial aid to undergraduate students. Because of that, we have just one merit scholarship program. It's a full tuition scholarship for all 4 years. You can find more information about it on our website. but to be eligible for it, you simply need to submit your application by November 1st. You don't have to be an early decision candidate. We did award a presidential scholarship to early decision candidate last year, so it does not mean that you're not eligible if you apply early decision. You absolutely are. But if you're a regular decision candidate, as long as you submit your application by that November 1st deadline, you'll be considered. Last year, of the 30,000 applicants, a little more than 8,000 students opted to submit their applications early for consideration for that scholarship. And finally, I mentioned the human-centered engineering major at Boston College. I would point out that if you are considering applying for that major, a brand new major at Boston College will be opening a brand new $160 million integrated science and engineering center around this time next year, providing an incredible opportunity for future engineers. We would encourage you to consider applying early decision. This first cohort will enroll just 25 engineers, followed by 50 in subsequent years. But because of our need to control the size of this initial cohort, we anticipate using early decision to fill a significant number of those spaces. So we would encourage you, again, to do your research, tune into our sessions later on in this virtual open house series on the human-centered engineering major, or watch previous sessions on demand to determine if this might be a good fit for you. So as I have been speaking with you with my prepared remarks, questions have been rolling in. And so I'm very pleased to begin answering some of those questions over the course of the next portion of our program. The question is first about self-reported test scores and whether we will accept those. Students do need to submit official scores to Boston College. You can do that if you're choosing to submit scores this year by sending them directly from College Board or ACT. If your school is one that includes these test scores on your transcript, we will use those from your transcript. And if your school has a copy of those and your counselor submits them as a certified copy, we will accept those as official as well. I mentioned earlier, a question came in about how many applications Boston College receives. This past year, we received about 29,500 applications. As I mentioned, about 2,700 came in through early decision and about 27,000 through regular decision. Does Boston College look at demonstrated interest, or does Boston College offer interviews? There's only one form of demonstrated interest that Boston College considers, and that, as I've talked about already, is our early decision process. That's the ultimate form of demonstration of interest. Students sign an agreement if they apply early decision that they will commit to enrolling if admitted, and we absolutely know that those students view Boston College as their top choice. Aside from that, we are not including demonstration of interest in our decisions. We're not going to count up how many of these sessions you've attended. We're not going to count whether or not you came to our session at your school. We hope that you'll do those things. We believe it's the best way to learn about Boston College and determine if it's the right fit, but it isn't something that will influence our decision-making process. So don't worry about logging in or sending emails just to make sure that we know you've expressed that interest, but please do be aware of that, the fact that we do not include that in our review. Someone has asked, can we use the COVID essay to talk about things we accomplished during quarantine? Or should it be strictly to explain personal circumstances surrounding the pandemic? It's a great question. The intent of that specific question is to help provide context to disruptions that COVID-19 has placed on you. That being said, if you have spent that time focusing in on specific things, I would make sure that you highlight that elsewhere in the application. You might choose to make that the basis of your essay to Boston College through your common application, if what you've chosen to do has been so meaningful that you believe it warrants discussion in that way. There's an opportunity on the application where you can submit additional information, things that perhaps were not asked in the application that you want to highlight. That could be a good place to do it as well. So I would not spend the portion of the common application for COVID to talk about the things that you've accomplished, but only if there has been something that, again, has significantly impacted you in a negative way. Really good question here, and one that we've gotten a lot, and one that the media, I think, has, in my mind, blown out of proportion a bit, and that is the impact of this past admission cycle and whether or not large numbers of students took a gap year and therefore will make it significantly more selective for you as applicants this year. I can't speak to every other college or university, and I know that many institutions had different responses to requests for gap years. There were some that were rather liberal in granting those accommodations. Boston College took a much more conservative approach. A gap year at Boston College has always been an opportunity for a student to follow a particular passion, to follow a purpose for enrichment, personal enrichment in their life, to put a hold on their education, to be able to pursue those things. This past year didn't lend itself well to a number of gap year experiences. Students weren't able to spend the year traveling. Students, in many instances, have not been able to get internships. They've not been able to even work a part-time job to save additional money if that was something that they wanted to do. So most of the students that requested a gap year at Boston College did so with that reason in mind. Now, I will tell you that Boston College generally has a very small number of students request a gap year. Last year, 33 students were approved to take a gap year into the class that just started this fall. This summer, that number did increase, but only increased to about 58 students out of what will be a class of a little more than 2,300. So a very small portion of our class took a gap year. So that should give you confidence knowing that the vast majority of those spaces are available for you in the high school class of 2021. Let's see, does Boston College have plans to open for tours soon? I wish I could say yes. Boston College is an institution that has opened its campus to our current students for both living and studying. Most of our students are back on campus. There were some students that were granted the opportunity to spend the year remotely. They may have been international students that simply couldn't come into the country. They may have been students who they themselves or had family members who were at risk for COVID and therefore didn't feel it appropriate to live in an environment with a large number of students. But most of our students are living on campus. Our classes are being offered in one of three modules in either an online format, a hybrid format, or a fully in-person format. And just about every one of our students has some mixture of those three courses among their portfolio this semester. We've taken great strides to protect our community, and therefore we have made the very difficult decision to close the campus this fall to outside admission visitors. We realized how difficult that is for you as you were trying to learn about Boston College, and we realized how difficult it is for us. The student visit experience has always been something that has set Boston College apart from just about every college in the country. We have one of the most spectacularly beautiful campuses in the country. We have an incredible student body with over 900 student admission volunteers who love this campus and this community so much that they volunteer their time to share it with prospective students. So it was difficult for us to make that decision, but we don't plan to be open for tours on campus this semester. We are hopeful that in the spring, we will have that opportunity. Question has come in, some more questions about early decision. A student has asked if you could be accepted during the regular decision round if you're not admitted during the early decision round. And that's a really good question. When students apply early decision, there are three outcomes that are possible. Hopefully, the best news that you'll get is that you've been admitted to Boston College. That's what you're obviously hoping for. We realize that applying early decision is a big commitment. And so we are working as hard as we can to try to make a decision for you at that point. And so the vast majority of our students that were not admitted to Boston College were denied admission during the early decision round. There are institutions that simply defer everyone to try to soften the blow, especially around the holidays when students were hopeful to have good news. We think it is more constructive if we don't believe you'll be competitive later on to send that news up front to allow you to process it and move on to another school. Perhaps you might apply to your second choice school through the early decision round, or perhaps it just allows you to focus on those regular decision schools that will be a better fit. Now, there are a small number of students that we do defer to the regular decision round, and those students do have the opportunity for full consideration. It could be that there are certain qualifications that we just want to see continue. Perhaps you've had a bit of an upward trajectory in grades and we want to see a full semester of work during the senior year. Perhaps you're taking a very challenging senior curriculum and we want to see how that plays out. There could be a number of reasons why we choose to defer a candidate, but one of three outcomes is possible during the early decision round. Another question has come in about early decision 1 versus early decision 2, and what are the differences there? This student particularly is asking, is early decision 2 more competitive than early decision 1? And the answer is no. One of the two rounds, and I won't tell you which one was which, one of the two rounds we had an admit rate of 36%, the other 38%. So we averaged them at 37%, almost identical admit rates at the two rounds. So it doesn't really matter which of the two you're choosing to apply to. Of course, this year could be different. If we were to see an increase in early decision 1 applications and we chose to fill a larger percentage of the class there because we just weren't sure what early decision 2 would look like, that is a possibility. So I can't guarantee that every cycle is the same. But if Boston College is your top choice school, it would be more appropriate to apply during early decision 1. Let's see. The question is whether Boston College looks at legacy admission, so applicants of students whose parents attended Boston College, and if anyone is disadvantaged by not being a legacy. You know, this is a question that a lot of colleges and universities are thinking about in different ways. At Boston College, we do extend a consideration for legacy admission only to students whose direct parents or step-parents have attended Boston College. So if that extends to, at other schools, it might be a grandparent, it might be a sibling, aunts and uncles. Those are not included in our definition of legacy admission, at least at Boston College in the admission process. This past year, our overall admit rate was about 26%. For legacy candidates, it was a bit higher, a little more than 40%. So there was a distinct advantage in terms of admit rate. But what I will tell you about highly selective admission is that our applicant pools are deep. And in fact, the application profile of those legacy candidates was almost identical to the overall population. And so we really saw virtually no degradation in quality, but we're able to go a little bit deeper in a pool, again, because those students have been able to demonstrate oftentimes through their applications exactly why Boston College is the right match for them. Some of them may not have applied early decision, but they're able to talk about that. So I would say it's a good lesson for all of you as you're working on your application to Boston College, as you're completing the supplemental essay prompts, to make sure that it is personal, that it does allow us to understand why Boston College, from a pool of 3,000 colleges and universities in the country, made it to your short list of applications. So I would encourage you to think about those things. Lots of questions still about early decision. I am happy to take questions on other topics, so please do send them our way. This one is about test scores and whether they can be considered for students applying by the November 1st deadline, either for early decision or for those looking to meet the priority scholarship deadline. We will be able to accept test scores taken through the October 3rd SAT administration date and the October 10th ACT administration date. We realize that the ACT has added 3 more test dates in the month of in the month of October. Unfortunately, the availability of those scores will not reach us in time for us to make a decision for early decision. So those students, if you're choosing to submit test scores, should be thinking about meeting one of those earlier deadlines. This question has come in about the 4 divisions, the academic divisions at Boston College. At Boston College, we have 4 undergraduate colleges, the largest of which is the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. About 2/3 of our students are enrolled there. Students major in any number of things from the natural sciences to the social sciences, the humanities, the fine arts, the languages, all fall under the umbrella of the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. 25% of our students are enrolled in the Carroll School of Management, a top 10 undergraduate business school, providing students the opportunity to focus their studies in commerce and business management. 5% of our students are enrolled in the Lynch School of Education and Human Development, and 5% in the Connell School of Nursing. The question that came to the forefront is whether some of those colleges are more selective than others. And the answer is yes, but not by much. So generally speaking, in the last couple of years, the Carroll School of Management and the Connell School of Nursing were slightly more competitive than the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences and the Lynch School of Education. Now, by slightly more, I mean by 4 or 5 percentage points. Generally, admit rate in the low 20s for the Carroll School and the Connell School, and the mid 20s for the Lynch School and the Morrissey College. So not a dramatic difference. When students are applying to Boston College, we encourage you, if you're undecided or interested in one of the majors in the Morrissey College, to apply directly there. Undecided students will find the largest number of offerings there, and chances are you'll find something there as you pursue a major of your liking. If you're more than 50% sure that you want to study business, education, or nursing, we would encourage that you apply directly to those programs. They will allow you, again, to be very focused early on. If you choose after spending a semester to transfer away from one of those schools into the Morrissey College, that's very easy to do. It's very difficult, however, to transfer out of the Morrissey College into one of those specialty schools. So we encourage you to do that up front. A question has come in about how many spaces are available in the School of Nursing. There are about 100, a little more than 100 spaces in the Connell School of Nursing each year, about 120 spaces in the Lynch School of Education and Human Development, about 570 spaces in the Carroll School of Management, and then, as I mentioned, the remainder, about 2/3 of our students in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. The question here is if we could provide some insight or information about the major selection process, and for example, how early someone would need to select a major in their division. The only major that students must apply into at the time of application is the major in human-centered engineering. So students will need to specifically designate their interest in that major if they'd like to be considered. The curriculum is rather prescribed and has very little variation. So it isn't possible for a student to transfer into that major after being at Boston College in another major. All of the other majors give you up until the end of your sophomore year to declare. Boston College will assign you an academic advisor that will help you navigate the university core curriculum upon your enrollment at Boston College. And through the university core curriculum, which spans 15 courses in a variety of disciplines, from natural science to social science to theology and philosophy and math and cultural diversity and English, all of these areas will expose you to a rich array of opportunities at Boston College. Many of our students find a course through that process that sparks an interest in pursuing a specific major. Your academic advisor will be a resource for you as well to help expose you to what's available. Boston College, through the Advising Center, will provide majors fairs and opportunities for you to speak with faculty, to learn about different divisions and different departments. And so there will be many opportunities for you to explore your major, again, anywhere up until the end of your sophomore year. Students can change their major once they're here at Boston College, and students can also minor across colleges. So if you enter into the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences, and then after a year determine that you really would like to have some understanding of business, you could take a minor in the Carroll School of Management while earning your major in the Morrissey College. So very easy to do, and we will certainly provide you with information about that through your advisor system. This question has come in about the transcript as we evaluate applications for admission and whether Boston College weighs freshman year grades as heavily as sophomore, junior, and senior year grades. What I will tell you is that every year during your high school is important. if you have variation in your grades over high school, we would much rather it be an upward trajectory. Perhaps your grades have gotten stronger each year as opposed to a downward trajectory. Certainly, as students take on more rigor, they are challenged in different ways. We have always advised students to work with their school counselors and their teachers to make sure that they are enrolled in an appropriate level of rigor. Not every student can manage 5 AP courses in their senior year. Some can, but some cannot. And so while you might be advised by all of your teachers from junior year to take their AP course in the senior year, that might not be the best strategy. It doesn't do you any good, and certainly doesn't do any good for your confidence to see the A's that you've been earning throughout high school all of a sudden become B's or B minuses because you took on too much in that senior year. So the proper balance, I think, is quite important for us as we make those evaluations. But we are looking at each year, we are looking at trends over time. Again, we're looking at grades and we're looking at rigor. A question here is about whether acceptance rates change based on geography. And generally the answer is no. We have a process by which our staff evaluates candidates from a wide range of geographic backgrounds. I evaluate applications from Hawaii, from Puerto Rico, from Massachusetts, some of our larger schools here in Massachusetts. And so as I evaluate candidates, I'm not just reviewing them all in context with each other, I'm reviewing them in the larger pool. And that allows the process for decisions to become quite equitable when spread out over time. But if you find, if you look at our application rates generally by geography, you'll find them to be relatively similar across geographic region. Finally, we're at the very end of our hour here. I have one final question here, and that is, what advice do I give to students as you prepare to apply to Boston College? Boston College, as you might know, is a Jesuit and Catholic university. And one of the things you will learn about the Boston College experience is that we challenge students to be reflective, to be loving, to be caring. And at Boston College, when you move through the application process, being reflective is an incredibly important part of this process. You are making a big decision. You're trying to determine the college or university that you believe will best fit the goals that you have in life. But more importantly, we hope you'll also be thinking about the institution that will shape you as an individual and as a human being. In our viewbook that some of you may have received in the mail, we ask you to consider the questions that matter most. We ask you to think about questions like, what brings you joy? Are you any good at it? And what does the world need you to be? We challenge our students to ask themselves these questions as they move through the Boston College experience, because the outcomes after Boston College should be more than just finding a job. Any college or university can do that. At Boston College, we want you to find a life. We want you to find a vocation, a calling that will allow you to make an impact on the world while also bringing you personal satisfaction. So as you approach this college application process, be reflective. What is it that you want most out of a college experience? What type of environment is most suitable for you? What size institution? What culture of an institution? The programs that I've outlined for you already and that you can find again at bc.edu/visit are designed to help you do just that, to understand the culture at Boston College and the learning environment and the social environment that we prepare students to move through, and prepare students to move through Boston College, a stronger individual and community member. So be yourself in this process. Don't be anything that you think we want to be. Be who you are and be your genuine self. As we evaluate a class, as we shape each incoming class, we're looking to put together a composition of students that represent the widest possible range of backgrounds and talents we can find. That means individual talent, individual uniqueness is important, the collection of which really makes a class outstanding. So we look forward to getting to know you over the course of the next month or so through our virtual open house program, Discover Boston College. We hope you've enjoyed this session this evening. We thank you for offering so many questions tonight, and we look forward to working with you through the application process in the weeks and months ahead. Best wishes to you in this college application process, and best wishes to you in your senior year of high school. Good night.